meeting of the New Berlin School Board's Finance Committee. Prior to this meeting, notice was given to the public last Friday by posting the agenda at each district school and the New Berlin Public Library. The agenda was also posted on the district website. Copies of the agenda were forwarded to the Waukesha Freeman, the Waukesha Now, and the Journal Sentinel, all of whom have requested these public notices. Is that Mitch, do you think?
It is. Sorry,
okay, there you go. Oh, very good. You're just in time, Mitch.
Perfect.
All right. So I just called the meeting to order. Now our first item is approval or review and approval of the minutes from October 26th. Has everybody had a chance to review those minutes?
Yes, I move to approve the minutes from October 26th.
All right. And is there a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you very much. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes from October 26th. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. They are passed unanimously. Very good. Oh, I do have a question. I see somebody on the call that I don't know. Who is Daniel Ailes?
Dan's our tech.
Oh, very good.
So he's on running the meeting.
Very good. Thank you so much. I was just
Sure.
confused. I didn't know.
Nope.
Thank you so much, Diana. All right. The next item on the agenda is review of the October financial reports. Did everybody have a chance to review those reports?
Yes.
Okay, great. And Mitch, you had a chance as well?
Yep.
Okay, great. Does anybody have questions for Patrick about those reports?
No, I think I'm getting used to reading them in this format now.
Yeah, I'm getting used to it too. I actually had just 4 questions. And I think, Patrick, they're pretty straightforward. So if we'll just have you take a stab at them.
Okay.
The first one I had was on the October 1st run. A company called Solar Winds Incorporated for $6,089. Does that ring a bell for you?
I just want to get down to.
Of course, take your time.
Do you know what the check number is on that, or the?
I can pull it up. I don't. Here, hold on one second. Let me just grab it. I had it here.
Yeah, it is 202424.
Thank you, Amy.
Solar Winds, I believe that is that's one of our tech services.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it sounds like it should be something different.
I thought it was to do with some kind of like the solar project.
No, it's actually it's one of the services that we use to manage our IT securities.
Okay. And is that like a one-time payment or is that a recurring payment?
Yes.
I don't remember seeing that.
Nope, that's an annual.
Okay, got it. All right, so it manages some of our tech security issues. All right, thank you very much for that. I had another question. This Bloom 360 learning community, I feel like we've talked about this before, but I don't remember what it was for. And we had 2 runs of like 6,500 and change on both October 8th and October 15th. And I can come up with the check numbers here for you if that would be helpful. This is check number 202446 was the first one. And then there's another one in a latter run, in the 1015 run.
That is, I can tell you right now,
Yeah.
Bloom 360 Learning is one of the, it's a tech, it's an online learning service that we use to help with our special education online services. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And that's not a annual. There's going to be monthly tuitions with that.
Okay, because there were two payments of $65.72 each
Mhm.
in October. So is it, I mean, is that what it costs a month? Is $13,000 a month?
No, one of those was for those are two different monthly payments.
Okay, but it's a monthly charge of $6,500 and change.
Correct.
Okay,
That comes out of our Fund 27, and that is, I think that's grant funded.
okay, got it. And then the last question on specific checks I had was on raising the stakes. I don't know what that is. And that was from the 10-8 run as well. And I'll find the check number for $9,100, raising the stakes. Check number 202492.
Raising the stakes, I thought that was a fundraising, like,
That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
But I don't remember ever seeing anything like that. And it
Yeah.
was, kind of a big amount.
Yeah, it is a fundraiser, and that's from one of the student activity accounts.
Oh, okay.
So,
it's kind
my guess is there's a fundraiser that occurred. We collected money. We pay them,
Yep.
and they're supplying us. So I don't have a whole lot of information, but I can tell that it's a student activity account.
Okay. Well, that
Yeah,
helps
so,
me.
and it says the description, it says fundraiser. So
Okay, very good. That helps me. And then the last question I had was, I saw there were several EduStaff payments for our subs because we're using EduStaff now instead of Teachers on Call, right? For subs.
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And then how is that comparing to previous years? Are we having an uptick in the sub costs?
Well, this is one of those years you don't compare those.
Okay.
To compare this with last year is
It's apples to
no,
oranges.
it's terrible. But it has absolutely nothing to do with EduStaff. It has everything to do with the pandemic.
Right.
So
And I
school
figured
districts,
Yeah, go ahead.
school districts that are with EduStaff, there's not that many, but we just had two more districts in our area that are switching to EduStaff as opposed to Teachers on Call.
Okay.
And everybody is experiencing similar, if not worse, numbers than we are.
Yeah, okay. I figured that was the answer, but I just thought I would ask because it's different than last year, but everything is.
Yeah, comparing anything to last year is this year to last year is it just you might as well just not do it if unless you're going to do it with an open mind. So
Or a glass of wine.
Well, I think comparing it to last year, it'd be even worse because we were closed down for 3 months. So last year is probably the better year, and this is the worst year.
well, and what we would do is we would compare September to September and October to October. We wouldn't compare like the whole year, together. So, and last year would have been even better because we filled 100% of our subs from, the middle of March until the end of the year because we didn't have any.
Sure.
So,
Okay.
I believe that we're doing everything that we can to manage our subs. We've talked to some other districts that have done things like increase their pay, and they still are dealing with the same numbers, even though they've increased pay. And so essentially what that means is the subs that we're going to get. It's just that they're making more money now. It's not really luring more subs away from another district to ours. So, it's one of those things that all the school districts are managing. And I think that Nicole and the school sites are doing a phenomenal job of making sure that our classes are covered.
Yeah. It's looking at the numbers, it's a pretty big battle for them right now, I think. So
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have any more questions. Amy and Mitch, do you guys have any additional questions?
Nope.
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so then we're gonna move on to review policy 3280, which is the companion Neola policy 7230 on gifts, grants, and bequests. Did everybody have a chance to, and Amy, I think that you brought that document, the updated 7230 that was redlined, right?
And then Patrick worked on it.
Oh,
then
Patrick
after
worked on it.
that,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. I just wanted to thank the right person. So Patrick, thank you for doing that. So I looked at that. So, last time at our last finance committee meeting, we did discuss the current policy 3280 and the Neola replacement policy 7230. And what we had gone over at that time was that we liked some of the components of our existing policy, but we wanted to update it to comport with the Neola format. So it looks like Patrick's done that in the document that was offered as a 7230 document that has some additional red line language and some underline language in it. So if everybody's looking at, I just want to make sure everybody's looking at the right
Yep.
document. So it's a 2-page document rather than a 1-page document, and it's a replacement for policy 3280 with a new number in the Neola system of 7230. So I just had a couple of questions on this. The first one is in the Neola policy and kept in the proposed new policy in paragraph 4, it indicates that the board shall provide written acknowledgement to the donor of any accepted cash donation of $250 or more. And that was a question I had last time. Do we actually do that, Patrick, or is that something that we should change to be something like official acknowledgement, like we give we give an oral acknowledgement of that in board meetings? Or what do we do?
No, you do a verbal acknowledgement at the board meeting, but
Right.
my office and I think Diana, I don't know if that flows through you as well. I know my office prepares recognition letters for all the donations that come in. We do that on behalf of the superintendent and the board.
And they do go to Joe for signature.
Okay, so we are
So-
doing that, so we can keep
Yep.
that. We'll provide written acknowledgement in this policy, and that's good. I just want to make sure we didn't pass a policy with something that we don't typically do.
Yep.
Okay, so that's good. The only other comments I had were on the second block of well, it's the first list of numerical items under conditions of acceptance.
Mhm.
In number 2, we just need we need an extra space on the second line. The board should have a space between the and the board.
Okay.
So. And then I appreciate the fact that the last sentence on that first page indicates that any equipment purchased by a parent organization for use in the school or district property or at a district related event shall be submitted prior to purchase for approval. Because I think that that's something that we hadn't tied together in our previous policies. So I think that that's a helpful addition. But other than that, I think that the new proposed policy that Patrick's presenting, I think would be appropriate for adoption. So Amy and Mitch, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I like this one. Really takes, the kind of meat that we really liked from the original policy, but then brings it into the Neola policy and has those conditions that we were talking about at the last meeting, and then defining the type. So I do like this one.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's a good compilation of the good from the old and the good from the new.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mitch, any thoughts?
Confirmed.
Okay. All right. So then, Diana, I'm going to put this one on, if we could, I mean, if it's okay with Amy, if we could do a first read of this one, maybe at the December meeting. Is that okay with you, Amy?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, awesome. So I'll just make a note.
And if you're good with all these changes, then I'll work with Diana to make sure that we just get rid of all the red line stuff
Yep.
and make sure that it's nice and clean and neat. And
Absolutely. That's
because there's a couple extras of those Crislin where the words got smushed together.
Oh, they did.
And I
Okay.
think that had to do with when I was
Oh,
putting all
yes.
the red line stuff together.
Yeah.
There's a couple more in there.
Yep, I do. I see one more right now. So I agree. And 2 more. Okay, you're right. Thank you. All right. So we'll do a first read at our December meeting then. On that. Perfect. Okay, actually, I think that what we need to do is we need to do a motion, don't we? So, is there a motion that to adopt this revised gifts, grants, and bequests policy for recommendation to the full board? Is there a motion to do that?
Motion to do that.
Oh, very good. Is there a second?
I second.
All right, very good.
I wasn't
It's
going to
been-
repeat what you just did. I don't think I could have done it.
I
That's
love
okay.
efficiency, Mitch.
That's right. It moves us ahead. All right, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the proposed new policy on gifts, grants, and bequests, policy 7230, which will replace policy 3280. Is there discussion? No discussion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Very good. All in favor. It's a unanimous vote. So we will bring this forward to the full board for a first read on the December. What is the first meeting in December? I don't know the
December
date.
7th.
December 7th. Very good. All right. Moving on to policy 3434, the imprest fund. So that policy, when I looked at this one, and compare it to the Neola policy, of course, we are missing those amounts,
The
right?
amounts, right.
Yeah. So Patrick, what functionally happens in the schools? I mean, are we adhering to the amounts in this imprest fund policy, and how are they replenished, and functionally what happens in this world of petty cash? Oh, you're muted, Patrick. Hey, Pat. You're muted, sorry.
Yeah, I was getting some feedback for it.
Okay.
I'm just waiting for that policy to pull up just so I can verify.
Oh,
But
sure.
we do not operate with a tremendous amount of petty cash.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
So, and I personally think that, the policy is fine.
Okay. And the thing that I was wondering is, if what I was really trying to get at here is, in our current imprest fund policy, it lays out amounts that each principal in their building is going to have. We're going to start the school year with and whatever. And my question was, is that actually happening, or do we not really do petty cash, or
We
see what I'm
do
saying?
petty cash, but I think years ago it was probably good for us to have the dollar amounts in there.
Okay.
But again, having a $50 petty cash is not very useful. Even $100 petty cash, when it does have to be used, $100 really isn't that useful anymore. And because because we have P cards,
Yeah.
that's really taken the place of petty cash.
Mhm.
So taking the amounts out, I don't believe would be, excuse me, I don't have the Rona.
Please don't have the run-up.
Yeah.
Right.
I think taking the dollar amounts out and just letting us manage petty cash would be more appropriate. I don't think we have to have the amounts in there. I would
Okay.
adopt the Neola policy.
Okay. And I don't have any issues with that. It was just something that I noticed when I compared the two policies. So I'm okay with adopting the Neola policy. I think that they still have to be closed out and audited at the end of every school year under that policy. So I'm not worried about any kind of abuse of that. Amy and Mitch, do you guys have questions or comments on this one?
No, not really. I think, not having a dollar amount shouldn't pose an issue if they're not really using this anyways.
Okay. And P card is the P cards are a much
Mhm.
more seamless and, reality-based way of reflecting what's used and for what.
Right.
So yeah, so I don't have any problem with that. Mitch, what about you?
Definitely agree on the P card thing being the more suitable option. It is a little weird for me not to have a dollar amount there. I just don't know if that sets us up for any exposure or something in there. That's my only concern.
It really doesn't. Because again,
I know the Neola policy doesn't have anything in there, and that seemed weird to me that would be the recommended, but I don't know that area that well. I don't deal with petty cash that much at work, so I don't know what a standard, company policy is around that anymore.
Yeah, it seems to me, in the era that we're living in when most people don't even carry cash anymore, it's not that surprising that, to me, that we're getting out of the area of needing to lay out how much cash is going to be available. I mean, that policy, our current petty cash policy, was last passed in 1998. So it's very, very old.
and that was pre-P cards.
Right. So I think that given that Patrick's telling us that typically we're not using petty cash as a regular vehicle in our money management, and the Neola policy still requires that all petty cash funds, wherever they exist, are going to be closed out and audited at the end of every school year. I'm okay not having an amount, especially because I don't think that, practically speaking, we're going to run into an issue where we have huge amounts of money not accounted for. Because that's what Patrick's telling me. I think that that's what you're saying, right, Patrick?
Yes.
Okay. So based on that, all of that, I'm okay adopting the Neola policy as it is written. But Mitch, if you are not, I'm also amenable to including amounts if that's what you think that needs to happen.
Yeah, I'm okay with the amount being large. We know Patrick has the best of intentions, but we write these policies for, 5 or 6 or 7 different people that could potentially be in that position.
Sure.
I just feel like the reason why we have policies is for the worst case, not for what we think is always going to happen. So
agreed.
I don't think it's a huge deal, but I think it definitely, as a board and being the fiduciary responsibilities for the city, I feel like we should have a dollar amount. Like I said, I'm okay if it's $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever, something that we don't want to put them in violation of for a silly infraction either. But I just feel like someone could take advantage of that in the future.
My suggestion then would be to put a number in, for example, not to exceed $500.
Oh yeah. I don't want to create a bunch of additional work that it has to be between some number. But yeah, if we can just put it at a cap of what you guys think is reasonable.
Okay. And then I think too, then we have to deal with the issue of, if you're going to put in a dollar amount in there, I think that we have to talk about whether there is replenishment of the dollar amount. Like if it gets down to a certain amount, then when does it have to be replenished? I think that, once you start talking about a dollar amount, I think you have to deal with those other issues. And that's
I would actually, Kristen, if I could jump in, I would disagree. That's not policy. That's office procedures.
Okay.
As far as the replenishment goes. So if somebody spends $100 out of their petty cash,
Yeah.
and they're regularly spending money out of that, they may replenish it on a very regular basis. There may be other offices where, let's say we give them a $500 petty cash, they may not go through that in the year. And so at the end of the year, they're going to cash in their petty cash with their receipts and all of that stuff. So I would just let us manage it. When your petty cash is getting low, you replenish it if you're using it, because that's also going to give me the opportunity then to say, why are you using petty cash so much and not using the P cards?
Sure.
So I don't think that you need to get that prescriptive.
Okay.
It does say in here though that, the shall prepare schedule of disbursements when the funds available decline to less than 25% of the full amount. I mean, I guess that's just stating more that they're gonna.
Right. And that's a nice arbitrary number. I don't think, again, you need to get more prescriptive than that.
Okay. So
But do we need to put a max on what petty cash could be?
That's what Mitch, I think, is saying.
Yeah, I mean, just theoretically, if we had someone in the future and said, I think petty cash should be $20,000.
Yeah.
And we're losing money and no one can track it, it's a lot smaller amount that's a risk. Or
What I would say is my suggestion is to say, put a statement in there, that you'd establish petty cash not to exceed $500.
Yeah,
And is that not to exceed $500 per building, Patrick?
Yeah, for anybody that
per
wants to
account.
petty cash.
Yeah,
And again, the not to exceed allows me as your fiduciary representative to say, I don't think you need $500. We'll give you 200, and it just gives me the ability to manage that as opposed to saying, well, you're a high school, so you get this much.
Sure.
Then I'll work with that. If somebody needs it, I'll work with them to come up with an appropriate amount not to exceed 500.
But is that even gonna happen, Patrick? Like, aren't these people, if they call you,
It's
they're gonna
not.
say,
There's
I
a-
need
there's
it
a-
for this thing, and you're gonna give them money for it?
Some of our buildings don't want petty cash.
mhm.
Right,
Not necessarily the buildings, but
because
some places that used to have petty cash, they don't even want it
right,
because then they have to
Because-
keep track of it.
right, and you have to secure it,
Correct.
and then and then if you don't properly secure it and it goes missing, then you're on the hook.
And
Yeah.
really, the only thing that they're using it for is if somebody comes in with like a receipt under $10 or something like that, then they're swapping it out with petty cash. So,
Okay,
like I
Patrick,
said, we're spending way too much time on something that we just don't really use.
that's what I was thinking. So, okay, so if you think, Patrick, that this policy is useful and and Mitch wants us to add a $500 limit or some limit, and you're telling me $500 is a good amount.
Yep.
Can you plop that in somewhere that you think it should go and get back to us?
Sure.
That'd be great. Okay. Okay, so that one we'll talk about next in January. We're not meeting in December, so we'll talk about it in January. And then I think we need to move on to the open enrollment and busing conversation. And I will let you take it away, Patrick.
Okay. I just want to make sure that I get that pulled up here.
Sure.
So you had asked in the last meeting for me to just prepare just an analysis of these two particular programs, which is what you have here. Starting off with the transportation. Since this time last year, we are estimated to save around $300,000 in busing. $230,000 roughly in just regular transportation, and around $70,000 in reductions of our shuttle transportation. So we are, and again, Durham initially had told us that they were going to increase our daily rates per bus because cutting that many buses is, they've baked in their fixed costs, like, rent, for their lease and all that, into those numbers, but they have not adjusted the daily rate per bus more than what they had already anticipated in the contract. So if they had increased that, we would be saving more. But so we're still on pace to roughly cut $300,000 a year, and over the years, it's a little over $1.4 million in the remaining years of the Durham contract. I did talk with Mike. Oh, go ahead, Mitch.
I didn't follow that. Did you say they didn't put the 11% price increase, or they're not giving us?
They did put the price increase on there, but when we had originally talked with them, cutting, essentially, we went from 42 buses to 30. We went from 42 buses to 32 buses, I believe it was. And initially, Durham said that they may have to because that's a significant change to the contract in the quantity of buses that we need, what they do with their per bus amount is they bake their fixed costs, like the cost to lease the property
Yeah,
that they.
there's a fixed portion and a variable portion.
Correct. And so they needed to make sure that cutting that many buses wasn't going to have an impact on their ability to meet their fixed costs. And they haven't made any adjustments. So we're still good. If they would have made some adjustments, that would have bit into our savings a little bit. But
You're saying they were considering not giving us the full or the full reduction, but they are giving us the full reduction.
they're right. They were considering a slightly or renegotiating the contract for a slightly larger increase,
Gotcha.
but they didn't do that. The other things that I put in there is, Mitch, you had asked about ridership, and I did talk with Mike Bennett, and ridership is down, but it's a result of the pandemic. We've got many more parents that are driving their kids to school and picking them up at the end of the day. Just go and park in the Poplar Creek parking lot at the end of the school day. Look at the line of cars down Cleveland Avenue. So
yeah,
again,
that's what concerns me about this is we're only at the $300,000 now, and I think we're stretching the time limit on some of those bus routes. So my concern is if this pandemic ended tomorrow, if we had to pick up another couple hundred kids, I have a feeling we'd have to add another bus or two.
I actually don't know that we would, Mitch.
Okay.
I think that we would. I think because when they run these routes, those kids that are not requesting transportation are still on those routes. So
yeah, but it's more. You're still running the same route, but you still have to make a few more stops, and that.
Correct.
It doesn't slow you down by a ton, but yeah, it adds a little bit of time. Okay. Yeah, that was just my assumption. I didn't know. That's not proven or anything, but.
Yeah, and we're gonna have to see how that all pans out. Once the pandemic is over, if that's sometime in the spring, or if that's the next school year, we'll see that. We'll see how that works.
Now, you might not have the count. Well, you probably do have the counts in yet. Are we seeing a decrease in funding for busing because we have less kids riding transportation?
Well, we will see a decrease in funding because we have less kids, because that's the way the funding works for buses. But
my guess is everyone will have that same decrease, and schools that aren't open at all right now will get zero funding. So will our per student number actually go up then if that pot stays the
It
size
could
that it is?
potentially go up because there's a pot of money that they have for transportation aid, and that transportation aid is essentially spread out over all the numbers. And so if all the numbers are down, theoretically the transportation aid pot stays the same. It should be spread out over fewer students. So again, theoretically, we should get more money for fewer kids because everybody's getting less money. For example, MPS, which incidentally is a Durham contract, they're not transporting any kids, and they're not paying their bus company, which is why we're not worried about getting bus drivers in New Berlin, because if all of our bus drivers quit, Durham would be able to fill those positions with drivers that are looking for jobs.
Okay. Yeah, I know that state aid formula, it's not a constant number and it's always changing, but I was just thinking of that as. Okay, sounds good.
The last thing that I had there just was kind of, reducing additional routes. Right now is going to have, I would not make that recommendation. We're actually in a good spot with our transportation right now. We don't have buses that are getting there late in the morning. And the buses are getting to the schools to pick up kids on time in the afternoon. I haven't gotten a parent phone call in well over a month. That's a really good thing. So I would not recommend making any changes at this point in time. Plus, if we were to reduce any additional routes, that's just going to dump more kids on the bus, which is kind of counterproductive from what we're suggested to do with regards to the pandemic. So I think this 3-tier thing, while it started out the year with a few bumps on the road, no pun intended, is actually, we're kind of hitting a sweet spot and it's working.
All right, sounds good.
The last thing we've got is with open enrollment. And I did try to put some numbers in here. And since then, Diana has done some work for me to come up with some of the updated numbers, which what I'm going to do, rather than to try to speak to those and make sense of what we have in here, I'm going to update this and send you an updated copy. I'll probably have Joe do that through his communication, but the what's in this report still is valuable information. We did open up open enrollment seats, and where we finished on the third Friday count was that we increased our open enrollment by 19 seats. That number has gone up a bit since the third Friday count, but I did all of this as of the third Friday count because that's the important count date. So we saw an increase in open enrollment in of 19, but we also saw an increase in open enrollment out of 7. So we aren't, the way the formulas and everything works last year, we had a net loss of, for the fiscal year 2020, we saw a net loss of 955,000. In fiscal 21, which is the year that we're in right now, we anticipate a loss of 901,000. So we reduced our loss is essentially what we did for open enrollment. Because we have more, we have more students that are open enrolling out than we have open enrolling in. Parents that are working in other districts.
I think we missed the mark on this for what I was looking for. I think we were looking for the numbers of what it costs us to do open enrollment. Some board members were concerned that open enrollment would be a loss for us in terms of having to add staff and teachers and additional resources for the open enrollment seats we opened. But
so this report is actually spot on, Mitch, because we haven't added any additional cost at this time.
Okay.
So, the additional cost, any additional costs that we have are related to the pandemic. They're not related to increased open enrollment seats.
Okay.
And
go ahead.
okay, so and Patrick, so when I was doing the math on these numbers, I mean, it looks like in fiscal year 2020, about 123 kids were out. That was the open enrollment out.
Yes.
It looks like. So, and then we opened up 19 seats. And what I was confused about, what in the last sentence of that second paragraph in your recap here, where it says, while this is still net loss to the district, the loss was reduced by nearly 54,000. When I did the math of those kids, I got 154,000. Is that wrong? As far as the reduction in the loss.
I'm trying to get, for some reason, my computer is so ungodly slow. The 154,000, you have to understand too, we also had more kids go out.
Right.
So
right.
It's not just reducing the number from the 123 from last year. We had more going out, so that ate into our savings this year as well.
Sure. And I think that I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding it, because when I was looking at these numbers, based on that, your amount of 8125, and the fact that, because what I did was I took that number, you said in fiscal year 2021, the transfer amount is 8125 for each kid, right? So
Yes.
we either lose 8125 if the kid goes out, or we gain 8125 if the kid comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So based on that, it looks like the net, you said that the net loss of open enrollment transfer of 901, with that 8125 number, that equates to about 111 students. So is that what I'm trying
So we
to
have
get?
a,
Go ahead.
so we have 100, we lost, we had 128 out last year.
Okay.
And 135 out this year.
Okay.
We had 5 in last year. We have 24 in as of the third Friday count.
Okay.
So, the difference in our open enrollment in is 156,000.
Okay.
Difference in our open enrollment out is 102,000 for a net gain of roughly $54,000.
Okay. That makes more sense to me, because I'm just doing the math on what we're bringing in with, if we didn't have an open enrollment in program this year,
Mhm.
then we wouldn't be bringing in 195 is what I've got. That sound about right?
Correct.
No, it's 150.
154,
Well-
because we had 5 already, so.
But you
Right.
had
The
5 already.
difference,
Okay, that's
the
fair.
difference
Okay,
in
so
what
that's
we're
where I'm
bringing
getting
in is 156.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah.
What's that,
The
Patrick? Sorry.
difference in what we're bringing in this year is 156,000.
To the good.
Correct. We
Okay.
also lost an additional 102,000 this year.
Because more kids open enrolled out,
Mhm.
Correct.
which had nothing to do with our open enroll in program.
Mhm.
Correct.
Okay.
But again, I was asked to
Yeah, I get it.
report open enrollment, and
Yeah.
those are innies and outies. So,
Right. And I think that what Mitch was asking, at the beginning, was he wanted to know what costs were associated with it and what we were to the good. So Mitch, it sounds like to the good, we are 156,000 or thereabouts. So, okay, any other questions on open enrollment?
And this wouldn't really be part of this committee, but we are getting to the time of open enrollment again, so we'll have to, have that further discussion
Right, in
at our
January.
board
second
meetings. Yeah.
meeting, yeah, for sure. So,
Yeah, 'cause I think the biggest thing on that was we were talking about, like, if we had to transport kids from outside of other districts. So I guess based on this conversation, we didn't have any of those cases. We don't
No.
have any extra services that are required that are outside of what we normally, the standard classroom.
and at this point in time, to my knowledge, none of the new open enroll in students are requesting special education evaluation.
Okay.
So that would be that's the thing that we have to watch.
Can you just
What's
tie
gonna-
off, Joel? Because I think as the board, we need something like this to present when we go to that open enrollment piece. And I think having all of that stuff there that, we didn't have any of this, or this, there's a future for some of this, and just kind of cover what those potential costs would be, because this gives us a little better insight into how this turned out versus what we expected.
Yeah, it's going to be really difficult for us because everybody's enrollments were so impacted by the pandemic. It's going to be really difficult for us to set the open enrollment numbers this year, I think. I mean, to be able to do that with any degree of accuracy or confidence in the accuracy, I think we're just going to have honest discussions, because, we could, if the vaccinations work and the pandemic is over and we get, a bunch of the kids that left back, that can have that can be a situation where we can open X number of open enrollment seats, and then we are in a situation where we may have to add an FTE in teaching because we got resident students back that we didn't anticipate.
Sure, but
I
getting
think
resident
based on the
students
numbers
back
we saw,
is,
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, but getting resident students back is even better for the bottom line than getting more open enrollment kids in.
Correct, unless you have to add a $90,000 FTE.
Sure. But I think the
I guess
impact, go ahead, Mitch.
oh, sorry. This virtual does not work well. Go ahead, Crystal.
No, I'm good. Go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say the concern, or we were talking about getting students back. I mean, we lost 100 and some students, but a lot of those look like they moved out of southeastern Wisconsin. So, I mean, I think when you look at the subset of the subset of what kids would actually be coming back, it's probably in the range of 10 to 20 kids or so that are homeschooled or maybe private schools. So,
Yeah, we'll have to have those discussions when we get to that. But I do think having some of this information, is helpful on what it looked like this year, and we'll have to, have discussions. Trying to think if we should start them in December to start, understanding what.
When do we
Excuse
make
me?
a decision by? Is it January or
Yeah.
forget?
The
Yeah.
second
Yeah,
meeting,
then we,
the
we
last
definitely,
meeting
we
in
definitely should kick it
January.
off in December at least and
Yeah.
give the expectation to Joe of what the board wants to see maybe.
I think let's talk about that. And what we can do, we do not have a finance committee update on this agenda, Kristlyn, but let's do it at the next one because then we can talk about this open enrollment cost benefit if we want to.
Okay, so when do you want me to do the finance committee update, Amy?
December 7th.
Okay, so you want me to do it then? Okay, got it.
We should have both of these on there, right? The busing.
Yeah,
and-
transportation and yep.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Patrick, for all of that. I don't have anything else. Does anybody else have anything else to add?
Nope. So our next finance committee meeting will be in
January 25th.
January 25th. Is there anything that we want to make sure that we cover at that meeting?
I was going to add a review of policy 3545.4.
Okay.
In addition to, we'll revisit the petty cash, or the current impress fund 3434. So we can do those two at that next one, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right.
If you all
Thank you.
have any questions in the meantime, just please let me know.
I will. Thank you, Patrick. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
We will see you guys in a few.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Aye. Meeting of the Board of Education of the School District of New Berlin is called to order. Please call the roll.
Ms. Crosby,
Here.
Mr. Helmer,
Here.
Mr. Kurth. Who's having trouble? Ms. Manley,
Here.
Ms. Schultz,
Here.
Ms. Unger, Ms. Wondercheck.
And Ms. Unger did let me know that she will not be attending tonight, and Mr. Kurth is going to be joining us in closed session, and then we'll be back out in open session. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn to closed session.
Move to recess into closed session pursuant to section 19.85, 1C, E, and F of the Wisconsin statutes to consider A, approval of closed session minutes of November 9th, B, employment, performance, and compensation matters pertaining to staff.
Do I have a second?
Second, Janet.
I have a motion by Ms. Manley, a second by Ms. Schultz. Please call the roll.
Ms. Crosby,
Yes.
Mr. Helmer,
Yes.
Ms. Manley,
Yes.
Ms. Schultz,
Yes.
Ms. Wondercheck.
We are moving into closed session and we'll return to open session around 7 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 7 p.m. and we are returning from closed session into open session. In recognition of the serious and important nature of our efforts here, we will join in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now for those who wish to prepare for the meeting, we will have a moment of silence. This is a public meeting of the Board of Education. Prior to this meeting, notice was given to the public last Friday by posting the agenda at each district school, the district office, and the city library. The agenda was also posted on the district website. Copies of the agenda were forwarded to the Journal Sentinel, the Waukesha Freeman, and the Waukesha Now, all of which have filed requests for all public notices. We do not have privilege of the floor, and we don't have any entries for privilege of the floor. When we are meeting virtually, any member of the public that wishes to address privilege of the floor can email Diana Hansen, and we will read those comments during our virtual meeting. I do not have a president's message, so I'll turn it over to the administrative team report.
Yes, so at this time, I would like to provide a video update from Nishi, the board representative of New Berlin Eisenhower.
Hello everyone. For an update relating to athletics, boys volleyball took down Muskego and advanced to the state semifinals, where they unfortunately lost to Kettle Moraine. Ike Swim and Dive had 5 state qualifiers: Maya Bockerman for diving, Emily Connell for the 100 free, Grace Fan for the 200 IM, and Sarah Schrader for the 100 fly and 500 free. For an update relating to activities, Ike NHS held a blanket making event and gardening at the New Berlin Public Library.
Hey,
We
Joe, is
celebrated
anybody
Hoko
speaking?
Spirit Week last week as Ike Student Union decorated the school, and we had days of dress as well as trivia night, powder puff, and a drive-in movie night. Middle School Spirit Week is this week, which was organized by Middle School Student Council. Lastly, on the 31st, Ike DECA raised over 8,000 canned goods for its annual Trick or Can initiative, beating last year's record by 2 times. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Nishi for providing that video update to the board. And as far as my update, I will defer to my COVID update in the regular agenda.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the district reports. Are there any items that should be pulled out for separate consideration? Mr. Kurth, do you have the donation report up and about Mr. Helmer? Do you have the donation report to read?
I do not, sorry.
I can go ahead, Amy. Amy, I can go ahead and do that. So we'd like to thank the following donors for their support of the school district. First, Joe Cascio, who is a staff member for the school district of New Berlin, donated $200 to support the DECA food drive, which was quite a success. We would like to thank Your Cause to support the French Club travel for $2,000. We would also like to thank Your Cause of support of the Spanish Club travel of $2,000. And again, Your Cause supporting math statistics field trip for $1,000. We also received a $2,000 donation from Kello Corporation, Advanaclean of suburban Milwaukee to purchase equipment and or supplies. And the following, not that any donation isn't appreciated, but we would like to provide a special thanks, and we certainly will be doing so at another board meeting when we are able, to thank Sally Doherty for a $100,000 donation to provide scholarships at New Berlin West. I would like to just re-clarify, Sally Doherty provided a $100,000 donation to provide scholarships for students at New Berlin West. We very much appreciate all of the donors, regardless of the amount. Thank you.
Thank you. This brings us to our next item, which is our consent agenda. Are there any items that should be pulled up for separate consideration?
I do want to just clarify that the last item, the district safety plan, is one that needs to be approved annually. And the only updates that we are including in the district safety plan for this annual review is that of updated contact information for staff.
Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
I move to accept the consent agenda as presented. Jeffrey Kurth.
Second, Mitch Helmer.
So I have a motion by Mr. Kurth, a second by Mr. Helmer to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, we're going to do roll call while we're virtual. So Diana, can you please call the roll? Or call the roll.
Yep. Mr. Kurth?
Yes.
Mr. Helmer?
Yes.
Ms. Crosby?
Yes.
Ms. Manley?
Yes.
Ms. Schulz?
Yes.
Ms. Wondercheck?
Consent agenda passes. That moves us to our regular agenda. Item A on our regular agenda is the COVID-19 update.
I would just like to mention that there may be a slight pause and delay as we try and get the presentation up on the live channel. So please bear with us, and then I'll get started once I see it on YouTube. Next slide, please. So what I wanted to be able to do is just continue in providing updates to not only the board, but to our staff and that of our community, our parents and others. I guess we continue to do what we can in order to move our efforts forward. Our goal has been to get our students 5 days face-to-face while also allowing a virtual option as needed. We've navigated things, I guess, as well as one could expect, possibly even if not better. But obviously with a pandemic, things could change at the drop of a dime. If we could go to the next slide, please. What I would like to start to do is just provide just numbers in general, share with you what we're doing, and then briefly talk about some of the questions we've been getting as far as when we might shift to virtual for all of our students. So The first slide that we have here will certainly show the level of increase in not only student cases, but that of student quarantine. While certainly the student COVID cases peaked on November 19th, as well as that of student quarantines on November 20, which was last Friday. I'm glad to announce that those numbers are actually heating in the other direction. But we continue to monitor this data. If we could go to the next slide, please. This slide will show, again, the ups and downs of our staff, positive cases in quarantine. Our peak cases were, again, last week, Thursday, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, did we go to the next slide? There we go. I went backwards on me. But the staff cases, the peak was on November 13, and then our quarantines for staff were on November 17. And again, I'm glad to share that those cases at this time, as of today, are going in the opposite direction. They're going back down. Certainly, this is something that we review literally on a daily basis. I can't thank not only our staff who are calling us and informing us should they be experiencing COVID-like symptoms. It allows us, even over the weekend, to kind of get things pulled together. Very proud of our staff who are taking the time. Literally, it's been 24/7 in some cases, with 7 days a week, so that we can make sure that we have things in place to, again, move forward with the model that we had looked for. If we could go to the next slide. What this next slide will show really are just basically three or four different areas where you can find information details related to the case and quarantine trends specifically. And again, please note that we will be sharing this presentation with our families, and we will also be posting this on our website after tonight's meeting and likely at some point tomorrow. But again, we do have these three areas where individuals can find the following information, and that is our COVID-19 daily dashboard, that of the SDNB specific COVID-19 info, and then also Waukesha County's COVID-19 website. And again, we would always request that should you receive any questions, again, that we defer them to the information that we have on our website. Again, we will be updating the website here shortly with a refresh of updates for the FAQ. There is a lot of information there that can be found, and it's being updated literally by the minute, as well as that of the links to Waukesha County. This next slide talks about what we've been doing in order to move forward with our mode of operation. And, we certainly, one thing is we continue to make adjustments to the calendar and the school schedule. As you are aware, we are moving forward with November 30th and December 1st as virtual learning days for all of our students. It'll allow our staff members to kind of recalibrate for the rest of the semester. It will allow students to catch up on their work and review materials. And then, strategically, it also provides us a buffer between Thanksgiving and return to school so that parents or guardians can assess their children's health symptoms several days after any family gathering or possible celebration. We also want to mention and remind the board that we are also looking at future adjustments that may be needed before and after winter break and or around the start of second semester. And that's kind of to be determined. What we have seen, for example, after the Halloween weekend, we did see a spike in cases. One could argue that maybe it just really wasn't the Halloween get-togethers, but that it was, something else. We're still not sure. We're learning along the way as we have since the pandemic started. And again, should people be gathering over Thanksgiving, over that break, again, we will have that buffer. So again, that is possible that, depending on what happens in our response to it, there may be a need to increase that buffer. We're hoping that we don't have to do that. Or as we return from winter break, again, when you have not so much Christmas, but the New Year's Eve and the New Year's Day holidays, again, could there be a spike in cases, and would we need to do something different in our calendar? That's to be determined. But again, just want to make sure that the board is aware that we need to be prepared, as we always are, to be able to kind of turn on a dime and pivot to a different learning model. I do want to just mention as well that based on staff, student, and parent feedback, our plan is to actually adjust the secondary schedule for second semester. We believe that the block schedule that we've put in place has actually been part of the reason why we've been able to stay open longer, unlike some other school districts. Instead of having an 8-period rotation, we limited that down to 4. And what that's allowed us to minimize the interaction in different cohorts, which is, again, in my opinion, been a successful move. Specifically, what we'll be doing is we'll be adjusting the blocks to be AABB, again, AABB rotation. The A days are for periods 1, 3, 6, and 8, and the B days are on 2, 4, 5, and 7. The rationale for this is the feedback that we received from the staff survey was that our staff would like to see their students more often in 1 week period, in a 1 week period of time. The feedback from parents were mixed about the length of time of a class, but there were comments that they appreciated the safety of the decreased periods per day and the safety of the schedule. They also commented that they would like to see their teachers more often. We put together, some of our administrators put together some focus groups of students in varying grades and talked to counselors and teachers to get their feedback on the current schedule and other potential schedules. So again, based off of the feedback, we will be moving in this direction, start of second semester. And it would also include A days and B days for the semester planned out until the end of the year. And that would not be adjusted if we had a snow day, because we do have students that have jobs that rely on the schedule for career and service-based learning students, as well as post-secondary scheduling, such as our CNA program that partners with WCTC. Additionally, we would make the rotating blocks clear to middle school students and their families. We will be putting together a correspondence soon to share with families of this change. And again, open to entertain any questions on that. But again, we believe that this is a move in the right direction based on the feedback. As far as with the next slide, we basically did have to ask families to keep kids home when sick. I did send out a voice message last week, letting families, imploring families to keep their children home when they're sick, they're showing even mild COVID symptoms, and if they have come into close contact with a COVID-19 positive person. Please know that based on feedback that we received from the Waukesha County Health Department, We are changing our sibling and close contact procedures. All siblings of students who are symptomatic will be considered close contacts and will be required to isolate at home until at least one of the following is satisfied. The sibling or siblings isolate for 10 days. A negative COVID-19 test result for the symptomatic student can be produced. A doctor's note explaining symptoms as something other than COVID-19 can be produced. And again, this is based on feedback we received from the Waukesha County Health Department, where what they are finding is that a lot of spread, which makes sense, is happening within the household. And they did put together a recent infographic kind of sharing with families what they can consider doing should somebody in their household become positive with COVID-19. Next slide, please. As you all are aware, we continue to monitor our substitute fill rates for staff, mainly that of our teachers and some support staff. At this time, we are not comfortable inviting more volunteers into schools given rising numbers of COVID cases. We do continue to look at ways to safely incorporate volunteers, but don't believe that using their services in the classroom is feasible at this time. We also continue to share Waukesha County messages. For example, in the letter that we'll be sharing with families tomorrow, we will be including Thanksgiving and travel suggestions provided by the county, suggestions related to sleepovers, carpools, events outside of school, and campaigns related to COVID-19, the flu season, and cold weather. Again, we are simply, we as the school district of New Berlin are educators and educators by nature. We believe that it's the county health department's job to share messages about suggestions related to health-related issues. And so that is why we continue to share their messages with our families, with our staff, and our community. The next two slides will talk specifically about some of the questions we've been receiving. While not too many, we did want to make sure that we clarify, what would constitute a closure to move to virtual for all of our students. I do believe that, the constant barrage of whether it's social media, the news, talking about COVID-19 and the impacts that it's having, certainly the increase of cases in the state and the county, which has been increasing steadily over the course of the last month, for sure, has an impact. But I do want to clarify a few things. That the answer to this question is not a simple one. So for example, one of the things that we monitor, along with all the other data points that I've mentioned that we're monitoring on our dashboard, is that of person-to-person spread in our buildings. And that continues to remain minimal. Most of our cases can actually be traced back to activities outside of our schools. Again, these are sleepovers, gatherings, nights out with friends, and this is both for staff and for students. Those activities are likely to continue, if not increase, even if our schools are closed. So, I do want to point out that some of the districts that have actually closed their schools and moved to a virtual learning environment, whether it's for 2 weeks, 1 week, 2 days, so I see some school districts are shuttering through what could be through the new year and even into the semester, the end of the semester. I know that we want to be able to do our part, but the data are showing that shutting down doesn't necessarily slow down the spread in the community. And again, because of the fact that a lot of these things are happening outside of school. They're not happening in school as far as the transmission. So, with that, we believe that what we're doing to mitigate COVID-19 in our schools is working. And I'll kind of continue. the whole substitute, monitoring our substitute fill rates. While again, certainly we monitor that, but through an all hands on deck approach, we do continue to staff our classrooms daily. We have had building and district administrators subbing and filling in. Even our SROs are more than willing to sit in a classroom or do what they need to do. And that's the mentality that we have, is that while filling our sub vacancies has and becomes increasingly more difficult, we certainly have put together a call to action for those interested in subbing. I will be sending some specifics in my correspondence to parents tomorrow. That will include some of the details of what's needed to become a substitute for us and how we can possibly expedite that process so that we can again garner the support that we need depending on where things land. But again, as of right now, we are taking the all hands on deck approach. And if we go to the next slide, I'll tell you why we are doing what we are doing. And that simply is because for many of our students, especially those with the most significant needs, the best place for those students is in our schools. This allows all of our students to learn to grow socially and emotionally and to help with their mental stress and anxiety. Our district's purpose is to serve all of our students the best way that we can. While we will be ready to switch to virtual for all or even a larger portion of our student body, if we must or are mandated to do so. And again, could it mean that we shut down a classroom or a grade level or a school and not the entire district? That's what's likely could happen. Because if we don't have issues at a certain school, but we do at another, we don't believe we should shut down the entire district based on what we're seeing, at a broad level. So we're dealing things directly head on at the most individual, case by case, classroom, school to school basis. But again, I just want to clarify that, more than or about 80% of our families chose the 5-day face-to-face learning option. Now, mind you, have we had, students migrate one way or the other? We have. We will continue to be flexible. Some are concerned with where the numbers are right now. And, in some cases are choosing to keep their kids at school on a temporary basis. And we can support that because we do have, the virtual learning option. Again, we believe it's a good option for the families that chose that option. So with that, I guess I would entertain any comments, questions, or concerns. Again, I just want to remind us that we knew this was going to be a heck of a ride, what this pandemic was going to do. And again, I certainly can understand the stress, the anxiety, the continual thinking that and worry that some may have as a result of this virus. We don't take that lightly, but we also don't take our mission lightly, and that is, educating our students the best way we know how. And again, especially those with the most significant needs. Questions, comments? And again, I just want to clarify that this information will be shared directly with our families tomorrow. Again, we have shared some of this information with our staff, and then we'll also be posting this information on our website as well.
Hey, Joe, this is Chrislyn. I just had just a couple questions. I know that you indicated that you guys are doing everything you can to keep classrooms staffed. which I definitely appreciate. When we do that, um, are we just having a warm body in the classroom, or are the people who are getting into those classrooms people who have, like, for example, if they're in an elementary classroom, they have some elementary school experience, or if they're in a secondary school classroom, they have some secondary school experience? I guess I just want to make sure that that it's just not anybody available gets in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's not a simple response, or I don't
Oh,
have a simple response to that because there's so many different scenarios.
sure.
You know, that our goal is typically to have obviously a qualified licensed individual in front of those kids at any given moment. In some cases, we do have actually a warm body, as you call it, in there because the teacher is teaching virtually and piping into that classroom. And so really, we just have that person there monitoring the students, behavior and or, just making sure they've got the appropriate supervision,
Sure.
as well as making sure that their technology is working. Um, Now, obviously, if we have a situation where we have a staff member experiencing symptoms throughout the day, it may happen that we are just getting supervision in there, depending on the day, depending on, the availability of who we have and who's available. So, and again, that I believe that example is few and far between. But I guess I just, all of our directors have been teachers at one point. Um, so even they, as they, are principals as well, maybe not so much our SROs or at least one athletic director. But again, our goal is to make sure that we are providing a rigorous opportunity for our students as often as we possibly can.
And then the only other question I had for you, Joe, was related to the sub staffing. And I know that we're still dealing with a sub shortage, based on the staffing we just talked about. I guess I wanted to know if there's anything that we can do as a board to try to defray that problem, or to ramp up staffing, or, I mean, from your perspective, is there anything that you're lacking from us as a board that you would need to properly execute your job for the kids that are in those classrooms?
President, I really appreciate that. As we appreciate the board's support throughout this entire thing. At this time, we believe that we are doing what we need to do. We do have at least have posted two building subs, so two per building. So we actually have, an additional, 12 subs that we've contracted for on a more permanent basis. In some cases, we don't even have all those positions filled all the time, but we continue to work on that. We continue to work with area university and college career development centers for any recent graduates from their respective education departments. So we strategically have been working, and one of the other questions is, should we consider working with another agency? We don't believe we need to. Basically those agencies, if I'm a substitute teacher, I typically will work for various agencies. So again, we're not necessarily seeing that one agency is outperforming others. All districts right now are experiencing this shortage. We continue to be creative. One of the questions that we talked through was, should we be considering paying more? We don't believe at this time that would be the the fiscal responsible thing to do, because we don't have data to support that other districts that have done that are actually gaining substitutes. What they're seeing is they're essentially just paying the people that they had and just paying them more. So we don't recommend that at this time. So again, we continue to do to navigate, be creative as we can. We've been successful thus far. Again, is this sustainable? Well, certainly if things remain as they currently are, we think that they can be. But again, as mentioned, since I've mentioned this since even before the start of the school year, not being able to fill classrooms could be a reason why we would close down certain buildings. What I will clarify is that, just because we have a sub shortage in the district wouldn't mean that we would necessarily close the entire district down. What it could mean is, for example, would we, if we had to prioritize, subs and fill rates, we typically, what you're seeing in most districts around us is when they shutter down for those reasons, they would typically shut down at the high school level or at the secondary level while still, moving forward with the elementary. Certainly the elementary students need more of that direct instruction. You've got childcare issues at the elementary and so on. Could we still service some of our students with disabilities to a certain degree at the secondary level? It's possible. So again, we're learning quite a bit throughout. But again, know that we don't believe a substitute, say, shortage would force us to shut down the entire district. So again, Krislin, as of right now, I don't believe there's anything, and again, I certainly very much appreciate the offer. Should we come up with a solution where it would mean we need to do more of something or hire more staff in a certain spot, I will certainly bring that to the board. And at that time, that would mean that we would really need it and we would need your support at that time.
Thanks, Joe. To the issue of, I know you said that if, it makes sense to me that if we're running out of substitutes and we have to start closing things, that it makes sense to start with a secondary. That makes sense to me. I did want to talk a little bit further about your brief mention of kids with disabilities. So the kids that we have in this district that have IEPs, if we, were to shut down secondary facilities, has there been an ongoing and deeper discussion than what we've talked about so far about how we can keep servicing those kids with IEPs? Because many of those kids, and I certainly couldn't generalize all of them, but many of those kids, if they go home for virtual learning, are simply not going to learn. And so I guess I'd like to know kind of what the status is with talking about kids who have IEPs and to a certain extent even 504 plans who, if they are precluded from in-person attendance, if that's what they're doing right now, if there's been a discussion about how logistically as a district we would handle that.
Yeah, most certainly we've had that discussion. We do have plans in place, and I apologize that I don't have those details in front of me, but I'd be more than happy to provide that to the board in my next update to you, as well as the next board meeting.
That would be great. I would really appreciate that. I just think that it's to sort of your point at the very beginning, which you made, which was basically we have to try to stay open because this may be the best place for a lot of these kids to be. And I think that more than any other population, it's a special ed population, I think, that is in that boat. So if we can continue to make sure that we provide them with their daily routine, and especially, again, that body of kids is very hard for them to make adjustments and changes in their schedules. So if we can have them be sort of top of mind when you're talking about any closures, I think that all special needs parents, myself included, would really appreciate that.
Of course, certainly.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Joe, for the update, and thank you for continuously bringing the update to the board and to our families. It's very appreciated. Are we okay to move on?
I had one quick question,
Yeah.
sort of related. This is Janet. You had mentioned sending out an email to parents in regards to the sub issue, but also mentioned that you're passing on the idea of having volunteers right now. So are you saying you're trying to recruit parents who have teaching backgrounds that may want to sub and be paid subs?
Yes, so we don't know, we're casting a wide net, Janet,
Mhm.
and we're not sure, we haven't tapped that resource. Now, mind you, at least the schools have been sending things out like in their respective newsletters and so on. But, sometimes that becomes white noise. And so maybe something coming from me as people are expecting, COVID updates, that this may garner some more attention to that and allow people to reconsider.
Okay. Well, thank you. I really appreciate all the hard work that's been done by the staff, everybody stepping in to do different roles just to keep the schools open and be able to meet those students' needs, and just the flexibility for the parents. Been really happy to see that we've been able to keep our schools open.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item B is to discuss approved policy 8500 food services. And this is brought forward by the Finance Committee. So Ms. Wondercheck, do you want to give us a brief update on it?
Sure. We did this. We had this policy brought to the full board at the last board meeting for a first read. This was a policy that we'd been reviewing for a couple of weeks, and then we had our CFO Patrick Miller took a look at it, and he combined sort of some of the elements of our existing policy into the current Neola policy, which is the 8500 number policy. Our original policy was number 3546. So we kind of melded those together in the Neola version that you have in the packet to comport with what we were currently doing in our current food service policies. This also aligns itself with current statutes and is more up to date than our previous policy. So this policy has been submitted to the full board today for consideration, and the committee is recommending its adoption.
All right, so it's brought forward by, so Ms. Wondercheck, are you bringing it forward as a motion?
I apologize. Yes, I'm moving that the board accept this revised food service policy to adopt it as part of our current policies.
Second, Jeffrey.
Chalmers, second.
Motion by Ms. Wondercheck, second by Mr. Helmer. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Ms. Wondercheck,
Aye.
Mr. Helmer,
Aye.
Ms. Crosby,
Yes.
Mr. Kurth,
Yes.
Ms. Manley,
Yes.
Ms. Schulz.
Yes.
Motion passes. That brings us to item C, actions on items discussed in closed session, which we have one.
Sorry, that was me. Apologize. I move to approve the employment services report as presented.
Second, Janet.
A motion by Ms. Manley, a second by Ms. Schultz. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Ms. Manley,
Yes.
Ms. Schulz,
Yes.
Ms. Crosby,
Yes.
Mr. Helmer,
Yes.
Mr. Kurth,
Yes.
Ms. Wondercheck.
Yes.
Motion passes. That brings us to future meetings and dates. The board meetings are generally held the second and fourth meeting Mondays, beginning at 7 p.m. Our next meeting, we are planning on meeting in the Eisenhower Commons, unless otherwise noted, December 7th at 7 p.m. That'll be our last meeting of 2020. We will move into 2021 with a January 11th meeting at 7 p.m. and a January 25th meeting at 7 p.m., which will be preceded by the Finance Committee at 5:30. A couple other dates. Thanksgiving break starts on Wednesday, so we wish all the families a very happy Thanksgiving. The students will be off the 25th, 26th, and 27th for Thanksgiving break. And as Mr. Garza mentioned in his update, November 30th and December 1st will be asynchronous learning for students and professional learning for staff. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Helmer, second by Ms. Schulz. And if there's no argument as far as yay or nay, we'll just go ahead with the yay. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. This meeting is adjourned.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye.
Yep, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.